I've always believed the sea holds secrets. As an experienced commercial diver, I've spent more years beneath the waves than I care to count. But that morning, the ocean off the coast of Nigeria felt different. It was just another day, another job. But as I zipped up my dive suit, a strange sense of unease settled in my gut. My name is Jack Turner, and I've been diving professionally since I was 20. It's a life of constant travel, living off contracts that take me from one corner of the globe to another. This job was routine: inspect and repair a section of the underwater pipeline for Salamis lines. It's work that I've done countless times, a dance with danger that's as familiar as it is thrilling. The team was a mix of seasoned divers and greenhorns. We were briefed by our team leader, a grizzled veteran named Harris. He ran through the plan, his voice a steady drum over the hum of the support vessel's engines.
Remember, stick to the protocols. Safety checks are not just formalities.
He drilled into us. I suited up, feeling the familiar heft of the dive gear on my back. My helmet, a Superlight 27, felt like an old friend as I locked it into place. I checked my bailout bottle, a small cylinder of emergency air, and my primary air source, ensuring everything was as it should be. Descending into the water, I felt the familiar rush of cold and pressure. The world above faded away, replaced by the muffled sounds of the deep and the rhythmic hiss of my breathing apparatus. My dive buddy, a young diver named Kyle, gave me a thumbs up and we set to work. The pipeline was a massive structure, snaking along the ocean floor. We moved along it methodically, checking for any signs of damage or corrosion. It was monotonous work, but necessary. The ocean is unforgiving, and even the smallest flaw can lead to disaster. Hours passed as we worked. I communicated with Kyle and the surface team through my helmet's comms, a constant back and forth of technical jargon and status updates. Section Alpha cleared. Moving to Bravo, I reported, my voice echoing slightly in my helmet. Then, without warning, it happened. We were inspecting a junction where two pipeline sections met when I felt a sudden shift in the water. A powerful current surged, tugging at me with an unexpected force. "What the?" I started, but my words were cut off as the current intensified. I struggled against it, but it was like trying to fight the ocean itself. My training kicked in. I tried to orient myself to find something to hold on to, but it was useless. The force was too strong. I glanced at Kyle, saw his eyes widen in shock behind his mask. He reached out, but I was already being pulled away, dragged toward an opening in the pipeline where a section had ruptured. The world turned into a blur of bubbles and darkness. I was sucked into the pipeline, the sound of rushing water deafening in my ears. Panic clawed at me, but I forced it down, focusing on trying to find a way out of the torrent that had me in its grip. But the current was relentless, dragging me further into the pipeline's maw. My helmet lamp flickered over metal walls that rushed past too close. I felt a surge of fear, stronger than anything I'd faced in my years beneath the waves. As I was pulled deeper into the pipeline, a single thought hammered in my mind: I need to survive. The world went black, and the story of my fight for survival began. The world inside the pipeline was a claustrophobic tunnel of echoing sounds and constricted space. The rushing water had subsided, leaving me in a cold metal cocoon, barely wide enough to turn my body. My initial reaction was raw panic, a primal fear that clawed at my mind, urging me to thrash and fight against my confines. But panic is a diver's worst enemy. I took slow, measured breaths from my regulator, trying to calm the pounding in my chest. The tight space was oppressive, like being buried alive. My helmet's light cut through the darkness, revealing the metallic innards of the pipeline around me. Every sound was amplified: the hiss of my breathing, the creak of my suit, the distant muffled groans of the pipeline itself. I had to fight the urge to scream, to let out the terror that was building inside me. I shifted, trying to find some room to maneuver. Every movement was a struggle against the pipe's unforgiving walls. The pressure of the water was a constant force, reminding me of the depth at which I was trapped. My mind raced. I needed to think, to plan. But the fear was like a thick fog, clouding my thoughts. I thought of my dive training, the countless hours spent in simulations and classrooms. They taught us about situational awareness, about keeping a level head in the face of danger. But nothing could have prepared me for this, trapped in the belly of the ocean, miles away from any help. In the unyielding grasp of the pipeline, surrounded by the cold embrace of the deep, I had never felt more alone. The darkness was not just a physical barrier. It was a void that swallowed my every thought, every fear. The silence around me was absolute, a stark contrast to the usual cacophony of life on the support vessel. The muffled conversations, the hum of machinery, the comforting banter with my team. Here, the only sound was the haunting rhythm of my own breath, an eerie reminder that I was the only living soul in this desolate underwater world. The absence of human contact gnawed at me, amplifying the dread that crept through my mind. I tried to reach out through the comms, longing for even the slightest crackle of static that would signal a connection to the outside world. But there was nothing, just the oppressive, unyielding silence that seemed to mock my plight. This solitude was more than physical. It was a chasm that separated me from everything and everyone I cared about. Each attempt to communicate, met with unresponsive silence, was a stark reminder of my isolation. In the crowded, bustling world above, life moved on, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the depths below. But here, in this narrow steel coffin, time stood still, and I was its sole captive. Memories of my team flooded in, each one a poignant reminder of what I was missing. Harris's stern yet reassuring leadership, Kyle's eager nod before we descended, Laura's meticulous attention to detail. Their absence now was a void as palpable as the pipeline that entrapped me. I imagined them on the vessel, perhaps even now strategizing a rescue, oblivious to the depth of my despair. The stark contrast between those memories and my current predicament was jarring. I had always taken comfort in the presence of my team, in the shared risks and camaraderie of our underwater endeavors. But now, as I lay trapped, that source of comfort was cruelly snatched away. It was just me, my thoughts, and the suffocating silence. With each passing moment, the weight of this isolation pressed harder. I was a lone speck in the vastness of the ocean, disconnected from the world I knew, fighting a battle that no one else could see. It was a fight not just against the physical constraints of the pipeline, but against the creeping shadows of despair that threatened to engulf my mind. In this oppressive solitude, the line between reality and imagination began to blur. Shadows seemed to move in the periphery of my vision, and the silence felt heavy, almost sentient, as if the ocean itself was watching me, indifferent to my struggle. I was alone in a way that I had never known, a loneliness that went beyond the absence of human presence to a profound separation from all I had ever known and loved. My thoughts turned to my family, my wife, Sarah, and my little girl, Emily. They were my anchors, the reason I had to survive. The thought of never seeing them again was unbearable. I forced myself to focus, to use their memory as a beacon through the darkness. I checked my air supply. Time was running out. Every breath was precious, and I had to use them wisely. I needed to conserve my energy, to plan my next move. Panic would only use up my air faster, and I couldn't afford that. In a fleeting moment of clarity, a memory surfaced. My father's voice, steady and calm, telling a much younger version of me.
The ocean is a mighty beast. Treat it with respect, or it will swallow you whole.
How right he was. And now, here I was, being slowly digested in its belly. My father's advice triggered me to remember something from my training, the concept of psychological decompression. In situations of extreme stress, it's crucial to break down the problem, to tackle it one step at a time. I needed to assess my situation, to understand my environment and my options. I felt along the pipeline, my fingers searching for any feature that could be a potential escape route. But the pipe was seamless, unyielding. I had to rely on my wits, on my knowledge of the pipeline's design. There had to be a section, a junction that offered a way out. I thought about the pipeline's layout, trying to map it in my mind. I had studied the blueprints before the dive, and now I clung to those images, using them as a guide through the labyrinth. Then, a realization hit me. The current that had pulled me in must have a source, a flow of water driven by the pressure differential in the pipeline. If I could find the source, I might find a way out. But moving in the confined space was a challenge. Every inch gained was a battle against the unyielding metal. I had to be methodical, careful not to waste energy or air. It was a slow, torturous process, but I pushed on, driven by the thought of my family, of the life I had outside this underwater prison. As I inched forward, the reality of my situation settled in. This was a battle of endurance, of mental fortitude. I was alone, but I was not helpless. I had my training, my experience, and my will to survive, and I was determined to use every bit of them to find my way back to the world above. The hours stretched on, marked only by the steady consumption of my air supply. But with each passing moment, I grew more determined. I would not let this be my end. I would fight, I would survive, and I would return to the world I knew. The depths had taken me, but they would not claim me. I was not done yet. In the suffocating confines of the pipeline, each labored breath brought not just air, but memories. In this alien world, memories of the surface seemed like lifelines to sanity. As I inched my way through the darkness, my mind wandered, unbidden, to the past. I remembered my first dive. I was barely 10, clutching my father's hand as we explored the shallow waters off the coast of California. My dad, a marine biologist, had the sea in his blood, and he passed that love to me. We'd spend hours underwater, him pointing out the marvels of the ocean, the coral, the fish, the play of light through the water. It was magical, a different universe where I felt more at home than on land. Those early dives with my dad weren't just about exploration. They were lessons in respect and understanding of the ocean's power. He taught me to read the currents, to respect the unseen forces that could turn playful waves into deadly traps. His teachings were my foundation, the bedrock upon which I built my career. As I grew, so did my passion for diving. It was more than a hobby. It was a calling. I devoured books on marine biology, scuba technology, and underwater rescue. I trained relentlessly, earning certification after certification. By the time I was in my 20s, I was already a seasoned diver, comfortable in the depths that would terrify most. My career took me to some of the most challenging dive sites in the world. I've repaired pipelines in the North Sea, conducted research dives in the Great Barrier Reef, and even done salvage work on sunken ships in the Bermuda Triangle. Each dive honed my skills, taught me new lessons. I learned to trust my instincts, to listen to the subtle whispers of the ocean. But as I crawled through the pipeline, those achievements seemed distant, almost irrelevant. Here, in the cold, unyielding darkness, my past glories were nothing more than memories. Yet, they were also a reminder of my capabilities, of the challenges I had faced and overcome. I was no stranger to adversity, and I wouldn't let this be my end. As I pushed forward, the tightness of the pipe seemed to loosen slightly. The change was subtle, but to a diver attuned to his environment, it was like a shout in the silence. My heart raced with renewed hope. Could this be a junction in the pipeline? A maintenance hatch, perhaps? I remembered the pipeline schematics. During the briefing, we had reviewed the layout, a maze of interconnected sections, each with its own purpose and design. My mind raced, trying to place my current location within that maze. If my guess was right, I was near a junction, one that might have a manual override for emergency access. The thought spurred me on, lending strength to my weary limbs. The prospect of escape, however slim, was like a beacon in the darkness. I focused on that hope, letting it guide me through the oppressive confines of the pipe. My hands, numb from the cold and effort, finally found something different in the smooth metal. A seam, an edge that shouldn't be there. I probed the area, my fingers tracing the outline of what felt like a hatch. It was a maintenance access point, I was sure of it. My heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and fear. This hatch could be my way out, or it could be a dead end. I had no way of knowing what lay on the other side. It could be flooded, or worse, it could lead to a part of the pipeline under even more pressure. But I had no choice. This hatch was my only chance, my only hope of seeing the sun again, of holding my wife and daughter. I gathered my strength, preparing to attempt the impossible, to open a hatch designed to be operated from the outside, all while trapped in the crushing depths of the ocean. As I set to work on the hatch, I realized that this was more than a physical challenge. It was a test of everything I had ever learned, everything I had ever been. In the depths of the ocean, in the heart of darkness, I was about to face my greatest challenge yet, and I was determined to meet it head-on. Above the waves, the atmosphere on the support vessel was a stark contrast to the silent tomb where I was trapped. The team, a mix of seasoned veterans and anxious newcomers, was in a frenzy of activity. At the center of it all was Laura Bennett, our diving engineer. With an unflappable demeanor and a mind sharp as a razor, she was orchestrating the rescue operation. Laura, with her auburn hair tied back and eyes that missed nothing, was examining the live feed from the underwater cameras. The screen showed the murky depths, the pipeline looming like a dark serpent in the gloom. She barked orders, her voice cutting through the chaos.
Get me the blueprints of this section. I need to know every valve, every hatch.
Time was our enemy. Each minute that passed brought me closer to running out of air. Laura knew this better than anyone. She had been part of rescues before, but this was personal. I wasn't just a colleague. I was a friend. We had been through tough dives together, had shared drinks and stories on many a long night. She was determined not to let the sea claim me. The team worked furiously, analyzing data, running simulations, trying to find a way to reach me. The current had calmed, but the risk of causing another surge was high. Any rescue attempt had to be precise, calculated. Laura's mind worked through the possibilities, discarding one plan after another. It was like trying to solve a puzzle where every wrong move could be fatal. As hours ticked by, the mood grew more desperate. The faces around Laura were tense, eyes flicking to the clock, then back to the screens. She could feel the weight of their gaze, the unspoken question in everyone's mind. Could she save me? Then, in the midst of the high-stress environment, Laura had an idea. It was unconventional, risky, but it might just work. The pipeline had maintenance hatches designed for emergency access. If they could send a remote-operated vehicle, ROV, with the right equipment, they could try to open a hatch near my last known location. The plan was met with a mix of skepticism and hope. The technical challenges were immense. The ROV had to be equipped with tools to open the hatch, a task never intended to be done remotely, under such pressure and in such tight confines. The team would have to pilot the ROV with surgical precision. Laura took charge, her voice calm but firm.
We don't have time to debate. It's our best shot. Let's get to work.
The team rallied around her plan, each person finding a renewed purpose. The technical team began modifying an ROV, attaching specialized tools and practicing maneuvers. The support crew prepared the launch and recovery system, checking and double-checking every component. The operation was a race against time, a battle against the odds. Laura oversaw every detail, her mind always 2 steps ahead. She briefed the ROV pilots, her instructions clear and concise.
You have 1 shot at this. Make it count.
As the ROV was launched, a hush fell over the vessel. Everyone's eyes were glued to the screens, watching as the small machine descended into the depths. The tension was palpable, a collective breath held as the ROV navigated the dark waters. The camera feed showed the ROV approaching the pipeline, its robotic arm reaching out towards the hatch. Laura's voice was steady over the comms, guiding the pilots.
Steady, left a bit, steady.
The hatch came into view, a beacon of hope in the dark. The team watched, hearts in their mouths, as the ROV's tools latched onto the hatch. It was a moment of truth, a culmination of skill, technology, and sheer determination. Laura knew the risks. If they failed, if the hatch didn't open, it would be over. But she also knew the power of hope, of refusing to give in to despair. This was their chance to bring me back, to snatch life from the jaws of the sea. As the ROV worked on the hatch, Laura allowed herself to believe in her team, in their plan, in the unyielding human spirit that refused to give up, even in the face of the unfathomable. In the narrow confines of the pipeline, time seemed to stretch and warp. Every second was a battle, every breath a precious commodity. The oxygen in my tank was dwindling, a constant reminder of the dire situation. But it wasn't just the lack of air that was a threat. The faint, sickly smell of oil gases seeped through the space, a toxic invader in my already precarious sanctuary. The pressure was unrelenting, both physically and mentally. It pressed against me, a constant crushing force that sought to squeeze the hope out of me. But amidst this chaos, thoughts of my family became my lifeline. Images of Sarah and Emily danced in my mind, their smiles a beacon in the oppressive darkness. I thought of Emily's laughter, bright and clear, and Sarah's gentle strength, the way she could make even the hardest days seem manageable. They were my world, my everything, and I wasn't ready to leave them behind. I clung to these memories, using them as a shield against despair. In those moments, lost in thoughts of my family, the fear and panic receded, replaced by a fierce determination. I wouldn't give up. For them, I had to survive. My training as a diver had always emphasized the importance of mental resilience. Under the sea, the mind can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. In the depths of the pipeline, cut off from the world, that lesson had never been more true. I had to stay focused, stay calm. Panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. As I fought to maintain control, a faint sound reached my ears, a subtle change in the ocean symphony that surrounded me. It was distant, almost imperceptible, but to a diver attuned to the nuances of the underwater world, it was a signal. My heart raced with a mix of hope and anxiety. Could it be the rescue team? I pressed my helmet against the pipe, trying to make sense of the sound. It was mechanical, rhythmic, not the natural song of the sea, but something else. The sound grew clearer, and a cautious optimism began to take root in my chest. It had to be the remote-operated vehicle, ROV. The rescue operation was underway. The realization that help might be close was both a relief and a new source of tension. The ROV's arrival meant that my team was doing everything they could to reach me, but it also meant that the next few minutes were crucial. The operation to open the hatch was fraught with risks. If something went wrong, if the hatch failed to open or triggered another surge in the pipeline, it could be the end. Despite the fear, the knowledge that I wasn't alone, That my team was fighting for me reignited my resolve. I had to be ready to do whatever it took to aid in my own rescue. The sound of the ROV, that distant hum of hope, was a reminder that I was still part of a team, a family of divers who looked out for each other against all odds. As I braced myself, waiting for what would come next, I thought of the surface, of the sunlight and the open sky. I imagined the feel of the sun on my face, the embrace of my family. These were not just idle fantasies. They were promises, pledges of a future I was determined to fight for. The sound of the ROV grew louder, a mechanical heartbeat in the deep. It was coming, and with it, a chance for survival. Against the odds, in the heart of darkness, hope was on the move. Beneath the sea, time lost all meaning. In the cold, cramped darkness of the pipeline, I fought to stay conscious, to stay alive. Above, on the support vessel, the rescue team worked against the clock, their efforts a symphony of precision and desperation. In my confined world, I focused on conserving what little air remained in my tank. Each breath was shallow, calculated. The faint smell of oil hung in the water, a toxic reminder of the perilous environment I was trapped in. My thoughts drifted to my family, their faces a balm against the encroaching despair. Sarah's smile, Emily's laughter, these memories were my lifeline. Above, Laura and the team faced their own battle. The ROV, with its specialized equipment, was their best shot at reaching me. But the operation was fraught with challenges. The remote vehicle had to navigate the treacherous underwater terrain, its mechanical arms working to access the maintenance hatch. Every move was critical. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death. I could feel the pressure mounting, both physically and psychologically. My training had prepared me for tough situations, but nothing like this. I tried to stay focused, to keep my mind sharp against the lethargy that threatened to engulf me. I had to be ready to act, to escape, the moment the hatch opened. As the hours in the pipeline stretched endlessly, the toll on my body became increasingly evident. The initial adrenaline that had fueled my desperate search for an escape had long since ebbed away, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion. My movements, once deliberate and calculated, were now sluggish, uncoordinated attempts driven by sheer willpower. The cold of the deep sea, once a mere discomfort, now seemed to seep into my very bones. It was a pervasive chill that no amount of mental fortitude could ward off. My muscles ached with the effort of every movement, each turn and twist sending jolts of pain through my weary body. I could feel my mental acuity dimming under the weight of fatigue and oxygen deprivation. Thoughts came slower, muddled by the lethargy that threatened to drag me into unconsciousness. I fought against the pull of this seductive oblivion, knowing that to succumb might mean never waking again. Every breath was a laborious task, the dwindling air supply in my tank making each inhalation shallower than the last. The faint, sickly smell of oil and metal that permeated the water was a constant reminder of my dire situation. It was as though the pipeline itself was a living entity, slowly poisoning me with its noxious breath. In my more lucid moments, I was acutely aware of the danger of my condition. The human body is not made for such prolonged exposure to these depths, to this pressure. I knew I was running out of time, and with each passing moment, the likelihood of my rescue seemed to grow dimmer. My vision began to blur at the edges, the once clear and vibrant colors of my helmet's display now a murky haze. I blinked rapidly, trying to clear the fog that seemed to settle over my eyes, but relief was fleeting. The darkness at the edges of my vision crept closer, an encroaching shadow ready to swallow me whole. The battle against my body's limitations was as relentless as my fight against the prison of the pipeline. I was trapped in a war on two fronts, one against the unyielding metal that confined me, the other against the faltering flesh that was my only means of survival. On the vessel, Laura watched the monitors intently, guiding the ROV pilots through every maneuver. Her face was a mask of concentration, the weight of responsibility etched in her furrowed brow. The team around her worked tirelessly, checking and rechecking every system, every communication link. The atmosphere was tense, a palpable sense of urgency hanging in the air. As the ROV approached the hatch, a new problem arose. The tools, designed for precision work, struggled against the corroded mechanism of the hatch. Time was slipping away, and with it, my chances of survival. Laura's voice crackled over the comms, steady but tinged with stress.
Adjust the torque. Try to get leverage on the left side.
In the pipeline, a new sound reached my ears, the metallic clink of tools against the hatch. It was both a comfort and a torment, a sign of hope so close yet so far. I mustered my remaining strength, positioning myself near the hatch. If it opened, I would have mere moments to act. The struggle on both ends was a testament to the human spirit, to the relentless drive to overcome the impossible. As the team on the surface battled with technology and time, I fought against my own fading consciousness, against the oppressive environment that sought to claim me. Then, in a moment that felt like an eternity, the hatch budged. A cheer erupted from the team above, a brief outburst of relief quickly swallowed by renewed focus.
It's moving, keep going.
Laura's voice was a beacon of hope. Below, I felt a rush of water as the hatch opened slightly, a sliver of escape within reach. But my body was weak, my movements sluggish. I pushed against the hatch, using the last reserves of my energy. Above, the team watched anxiously, the ROV's camera transmitting every moment.
He's right there. Come on, Jack.
Someone muttered, a prayer to the depths. As the hatch opened wider, a glimmer of freedom beckoned. But my body was failing me. My vision blurred, the edges of consciousness fraying. I reached out, my hand grazing the edge of the hatch, my escape tantalizingly close. And then, darkness began to close in. My last thought, a whisper in the void, was of Sarah and Emily, their faces a fading light in the encroaching darkness. On the surface, the team watched in horror as I slumped against the hatch.
He's losing consciousness.
Laura's voice cracked with emotion.
We need to get him out now.
The tension on the support vessel was palpable, a thick cloud of fear and determination hanging over the team. Laura, eyes fixed on the monitor, saw me slumping against the hatch.
We're not losing him,
she declared, her voice a rallying cry that cut through the despair. The team responded, their actions fueled by a mix of professional duty and personal resolve. In those critical moments, the bonds formed under the relentless pressure of the rescue effort came to the fore. Each member of the team, from the seasoned veterans to the fresh-faced recruits, understood the stakes. There was no room for error, no second chances. The operation had reached its zenith, and it was do or die. Above, the ROV operators worked feverishly to widen the gap of the hatch, their movements precise, despite the urgency. Laura coordinated the effort, her instructions clear and concise, even as her heart raced with fear for me, her friend trapped in the depths. Meanwhile, below the waves, consciousness flickered in and out like a failing light. In the haze of semi-awareness, I felt hands grasping me, pulling me towards the hatch. It was a surreal experience, as if I were a spectator in my own rescue. My mind, adrift in memories and fading hopes, barely registered the movement, the rush of water as I was being extracted from the pipeline. Back on the vessel, the team members shared quick, meaningful glances, a silent communication born of shared experience and mutual respect. They knew the dangers of the job, the risks they all faced every time they dove into the sea. But in that moment, it was more than just a job. It was a mission, a testament to their commitment to one another. The ROV's camera feed showed me being carefully maneuvered out of the hatch. The team on the surface watched, holding their breaths, as I was finally freed from the pipeline's grasp. It was a moment of triumph, of relief, but they knew the battle wasn't over yet. I was unconscious, my body limp as the ROV operators guided me towards the surface. The pressure of the deep had taken its toll, and my condition was critical. The medical team on the vessel prepared for my arrival, ready to provide immediate care. As the ROV ascended, the team on the vessel gathered at the recovery area, their faces a mix of anxiety and hope. Laura stood at the forefront, her eyes never leaving the screen, watching as I was slowly brought to the surface. The final push was a race against time. Every second mattered, every action could mean the difference between life and death. The team worked in perfect harmony, their movements a well-rehearsed dance honed by years of training and experience. Finally, I breached the surface, the ROV cradling my body. The medical team sprang into action, gently lifting me onto the deck. Laura was by my side in an instant, her face etched with concern.
Jack, can you hear me?
She asked, her voice a mixture of worry and hope. But I was unresponsive, my condition hanging in the balance. My fate was uncertain, my life in the hands of the medical professionals who worked tirelessly to revive me. The night's ordeal was a testament to the strength and resilience of the human spirit, to the bonds forged in the face of adversity. The team watched over me, their faces a mix of exhaustion and determination, a silent vow to see me through the darkness and back to the light. The recovery was slow, a journey from the depths of unconsciousness back to the light of the living. When I first opened my eyes, the world was a blur of colors and sounds. I was on the support vessel, surrounded by medical equipment and concerned faces. The first face I recognized was Laura's, her eyes wet with relief.
Welcome back, Jack,
She said, a smile breaking through her worry. In the days that followed, my recovery became a testament to the resilience of the human body and spirit. I was flown back to land, to a hospital where I could heal. Sarah and Emily were there, their faces a sight for sore eyes. The moment I held them, I knew that everything I had endured, every moment of fear and despair in the pipeline, was worth it. The reunion with my team was equally emotional. We had always been close, but the experience had bonded us in ways I couldn't have imagined. We shared stories, laughed, and even cried a little. It was more than camaraderie. It was a deep, unspoken understanding of what we had all been through. The incident had a profound impact on my life and perspective. Lying in the hospital bed, I had time to reflect on the events. I thought about the ocean, that vast and mysterious world I had called home for so long. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder of how small and fragile we are in the face of nature's power. I pondered my future as a diver. Part of me longed to return to the sea, to feel the weightlessness of the water, the thrill of exploring the unknown. But another part of me hesitated, wary of the dangers that lurked beneath the waves. It was during one of these reflections that Sarah came to me. She knew me better than anyone, knew my love for the sea.
The ocean is part of who you are,
She said gently.
but it doesn't define you. Whatever you decide, we'll be here for you.
Her words stayed with me in the coming weeks as I continued to heal. I realized that my experience in the pipeline hadn't diminished my love for the sea. If anything, it had deepened it. The ocean had tested me, had brought me to the brink, but it had also shown me the value of life, of the connections we have with those we care about. When I was finally cleared by the doctors, I made my decision. I would return to the sea, but with a new respect and understanding of its power. I wouldn't let fear dictate my life, but I would also not forget the lessons I had learned. The day I returned to the water was a clear, sunny day. The ocean was calm, its surface a mirror reflecting the vast sky above. As I donned my diving gear, I felt a familiar thrill, a sense of coming home. I entered the water, the cool embrace of the sea welcoming me back. Below the surface, the world was quiet, serene. I looked around, taking in the sights and sounds of the underwater world. It was as beautiful as I remembered, a world of endless wonders and hidden dangers. As I swam, I thought about my journey, about the long night in the pipeline and the incredible effort to save me. I was grateful to be alive, to have the chance to dive again. As I floated in the water, looking up at the light dancing on the surface, it was a moment of peace, a moment of reconciliation with the sea. The ocean had shown me its darkest depths, but it had also shown me the strength of the human spirit, the unbreakable bonds of family and friendship. I knew then that no matter what the future held, I would always respect the sea, always remember the lessons it had taught me. The ocean was a part of me, and I was a part of it. Together, we were bound by a mutual respect, a shared understanding of the delicate balance between fear and fascination, danger and beauty. As I swam back to the surface, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a renewed love for the mysterious world beneath the waves. The sea had tested me, but I had emerged stronger, more resilient. It was a new beginning, a new chapter in my life as a diver.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Quantum Dispatches and stay tuned next week for another thrilling adventure. Thank you for listening.